What's up, ladies and gents, Ghost here, and today I'm going to be covering some of the new gadgets and attachments that are going to be available in Battlefield 4. So as you can see by the footage in the background, things have changed quite a bit since E3. They've definitely pulled out all the stops this time, and they've thrown out every weapon, every attachment, and every gadget to be tried out. Now, some of the descriptions for the weapons, attachments, and so on are a bit shoddy in terms of grammar and spelling, so I think a lot of these are just placeholders, and you will also notice that some of the icons for certain gadgets are just a grenade symbol, so this is definitely not final. These are just placeholders, and nothing, of course, is final until the actual game is released. So just to give you guys a heads up, as you know, a lot of the old gadgets and attachments from Battlefield 3 are coming back to Battlefield 4, and they remain for the most part pretty much unchanged. So I'm not going to be covering those. I'm going to be going over the new gadgets and attachments, and I'm also going to leave the weapons for the time being. You can of course see them here in the video footage in the background, and if you so wish to pause and take a closer look at the list, by all means do so, but I don't really see much point in covering the old guns or the new guns until some more stats and information have been released, maybe on Symantec or when the game actually gets into beta. So with that said, let's get right into it, starting with grenades. Some of the new grenades here, we have the RGO Impact Grenade, a grenade that explodes directly on impact with any surface. So I can see that being a very viable option instead of using frag grenades and having to sort of lob them way up in the air and time the explosion. If you have a clear sight on the enemy, you can actually just lob it straight at them. Although that said, it is going to mean exposing yourself to them somewhat more than you probably would have to with a frag grenade. We then have the M34 Incendiary Grenade. This one I don't think is going to be a great damage dealer, but it's probably going to be great for crowd control, such as blocking a corridor to stop the enemy from getting through. We then have the M18 Smoke Grenade, which does pretty much what it says on the tin. Very nice to have the option to simply carry a smoke grenade and not have to equip the underbarrel launcher. Then we have the V40 Mini Grenades. These are essentially like frag grenades, but just smaller in impact, and you can carry more of them. And then finally we have the hand flares. Not exactly sure whether that's going to come in handy. I mean, I can certainly see the applications of it. Maybe you're team speak with some guys and you sort of say, hey, you know, over here guys, and you sort of set off your flare. But is it really going to be that handy that you want to carry a flare instead of some kind of grenade? I'm not too sure. Now, they've gone and added a bunch of new knives into the game, but it only seems to be for aesthetical reasons. So I don't think they have any difference in stats and damage or anything like that, and I don't think even any of the takedowns are different. I think they simply just look different, and I'm seeing a common theme here that a lot of the attachments and things that they're putting in the game is just to alter your weapon aesthetically. So we have the bayonet knife, the ACB 90 is making a comeback, then we have the shank, machete, Bowie knife, carbon fiber, improvised, scout, survival, and the trench knives. So I suppose you can just go with whichever one you think looks coolest, but other than that, it's not going to make any difference to you whatsoever. So, moving on to something that will make a difference, we're going to go on to the attachments for the assault rifles. First of all, optics remain hugely unchanged. You've got your 1x scope, your 2x scope, your 3.4, your 4x scopes, infrared scopes, pretty much the same stuff as you have in Battlefield 3, so I'm not really going to cover that. However, something that is definitely interesting are the accessories. So first off, we've got the canted iron sights, which allow you an alternate set of sights to switch to when engaging close range targets. We saw that at E3. Then we have the magnifier that adds a toggleable 2x zoom to any red dot or 1x sight. So you basically have the option to either go with a long range sight and have the canted iron sight as an option, or you can go with a 1x sight such as red dot sight and have the magnifier as an option for a little bit of extra range. Then we get to the tactical light and the flashlight, and this is where they've made a little bit of change. So the flashlight acts exactly the same way it currently does in Battlefield 3, but then we have the tac light, and it says a flashlight that lights up automatically when you aim down your sights, lights up areas and blinds enemies. So this is something that people used to do with the tac light in Battlefield 3. They would bind their right mouse button to not only aim down sights, but turn their flashlight on and then off again, so that they weren't giving away their position when they didn't want to. And DICE has obviously picked up on this, and they've decided to put that in the game as an attachment. Now we have 3 different kind of laser sights, so I'm just going to read out the descriptions of those. First of all, laser sight increases accuracy when firing from the hip. The bright lights make you highly visible, but can blind enemies. Then we have Tri-Beam Laser, a laser with 3 points to make aiming from the hip easier and temporarily blind enemies. And then finally, Green Laser Sight, can blind enemies if shined directly in their eyes and increases hip fire accuracy. So they pretty much all sound like they do the same thing. They all blind enemies and they all increase your hip fire accuracy. Maybe it's just for aesthetics, or maybe some of them are a little bit more blinding and a little bit more obvious to the enemy, and some of them less so. And finally, the last accessory, we have the Laser Light Combo, which allows you to toggle between a blinding flashlight or accuracy increasing laser pointer. So that's quite a nice addition there. 2 for the price of 1, I'll take that any day. So moving on to the barrel attachments, we have the muzzle brake and the compensator. The muzzle brake seems to reduce recoil at the expense of accuracy, and the compensator also reduces recoil at the expense of accuracy. So both of these descriptions seem to say that these weapons do exactly the same thing, but I have read on sources on the internet that the muzzle brake reduces vertical recoil by 25%, and the compensator reduces horizontal recoil by 25%. So I'm not sure if that is 100% accurate, but if it turns out to be true, just remember who told you. Then we have 4 different use silencers, which all appear to do exactly the same thing and have the same penalties as they currently do in Battlefield 3. I think the differences are simply that one's Russian, one is Chinese, and maybe 2 of them are American, and they just look different aesthetically. Moving on to the grips now, there are essentially 6 different grips, but 2 of each do the same thing. So first up, we've got the ergo grip and the vertical grip, which both reduce the accuracy penalty when shooting whilst moving. So I can definitely imagine putting this on a PDW or a carbine along with a laser sight and hip firing to your heart's content. Next up, we have the stubby grip and the potato grip, which makes recovering to normal accuracy faster when coming out of a sprint. So for those players who like to sort of run and gun, it is a little bit COD-y, you know, sort of sprinting around, bunny hopping and that kind of thing. But for players who like that kind of gameplay style, that would probably be a grip that they would like to go for. And finally, we have the folding grip and the angled grip, which reduce the first shot recoil, making bursts and single shots easier to handle. So for anything that you have to fire in bursts or single shots like a DMR, this is definitely going to be the grip to go for. Right, so with all the attachments covered, let's move on to some of the gadgets for the classes. Not too much to say about the Assault class here, seems to be pretty much the same as it was at E3. I will mention that the M320 launcher now has the addition of the flashbang grenade, so you can flashbang a room with that launcher. So moving on to the Engineer class, and personally for me, some of the most interesting changes that I've seen for a while. They've made a lot of changes to some of the launchers, as well as introducing some new launchers. So first off, we've got the RPG and the SMAW. For the RPG, it says fires a heavy rocket specialized in doing as much damage as possible around anywhere it impacts. Can also lock onto laser designated targets, and the same goes for the SMAW. So no longer is this going to be a land only weapon. Presumably if a SOFLAM or a vehicle laser designates a air vehicle, then you should be able to now shoot it down and lock onto it with the RPG and the SMAW. Then we've got a new launcher called the FGM-172 SRAW, or SRAW, which is a bit of a mouthful, and it says fires a wire-guided anti-armor missile that will fly towards the point being aimed at. So that sounds a lot like a TOW missile. Then we have the MBT LAW, a guiding homing missile for taking out enemy land vehicles. Achieve and maintain lock-on until the missile reaches its target. So it's not like Javelin, where you can just lock on, let the missile away, and then you don't have to aim anymore. You have to keep the lock-on. Then we've got the SA-18 Igla, and it says, has a targeting system that covers a bigger area in front of the weapon. Once a lock-on is achieved, it needs to be maintained until the missile has reached its target. If the lock-on is lost, it can be reacquired and the missile might still reach its target. So some changes to the Igla there. You can't no longer just lock on, let the missile away, and then go and hide. You actually have to keep the lock on until the missile hits its target. So I feel that's a little bit of a nerf, but maybe they'll do even more damage than they currently do in Battlefield 3. And finally, we have what seems to be a new mine, the M2 SLAM. and the description reads, placed on any surface where it will wait for an enemy vehicle to pass by in front of it. When triggered, it will detonate with devastating force, stopping most vehicles in their tracks. Now, as we know, they've changed the way that vehicle disables work in Battlefield 4, so I'm going to go ahead and guess that rather than just doing damage to a vehicle, the slam mine is designed to actually disable vehicles. Then we've got the support class, one new gadget we've seen at Gamescom, and that is the MP-APS, and it reads, once placed on the ground, will start sensing for incoming grenade, rocket and missile threats. When a threat is detected, it will take it out together with any other for a short while before it needs to recharge. So it's essentially like an incoming missile defense system, and that sounds pretty interesting. I'm not exactly sure what you may use it for or in what situations, but I'm definitely looking forward to trying that one out. And finally, the good old recons. They've seen so much change. They're getting claymores and C4 the same as support now, but we've also seen some big changes to the long-range scopes. I think long-range sniping in Battlefield 4 is going to be a much bigger thing than it was in Battlefield 3. Not sure if that's good or not, considering the amount of people that currently do it in Battlefield 3, but we'll see how it works out. So the most long-range scope that we currently have is a 12x scope in BF3. In BF4, you're getting the Hunter Scope, which is a 20x scope, and if that wasn't enough, you're then getting the Ballistic Scope, which is 40x, which is absolutely insane. On top of that, they have a attachment called Variable Zoom, which adds another toggleable 14x magnification mode to any high-powered scope. So you can have a 40x scope, and then you can also switch up to a 14x zoom if the 40x magnification is just far too much for you. So they're definitely increasing the amount of options for long-range sniping. And then of course we have the rangefinder that allows you to zero in your aim, and that is definitely necessary, I feel, now since they've gone and stuck a 40x zoom in the game. Can you imagine the amount of bullet drop at that range? But we've all seen that in the Paracel Storm trailer. And then we have the PLD, which is a portable device to paint targets for missile weapons that respond to laser designation. So they still have the normal SOFLAM, I believe, that you can plant down and remote control, and then the PLD is essentially a portable SOFLAM which sort of acts as a pair of binoculars that you look through. And then finally, we have the motion sensor. After being thrown into an area, it will start sensing for enemy movement and transfer the data back to your team's minimap. So just like the tugs, only it's portable, and most likely it won't last for as long or have quite as large a radius. So that's that, guys, for all the attachments and gadgets. As I mentioned before, I won't be going over the weapons, and not at least until we've gotten some more information about them, because I really don't see how much I can commentate on. As you can see, there are a lot of the old weapons from Battlefield 3 coming back. There are a lot of these new ace weapons. I think there's one for every single class in the game, so they may be going a little bit crazy on the same type of gun there, but I'm really looking forward to doing gun guides for all the new weapons and the old weapons alike, because most likely some of the old weapons will now have varying different changes. Who knows? Maybe the M16A3 isn't going to be the top dog anymore. Maybe it's going to be a different weapon. I'm looking forward to all that stuff, getting in depth with those gun statistics, and conveying that info to you guys. So thanks for watching. If you stuck with me through this whole video, please hit a like button down below if you enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.